managing recordings on your desktop.
Okay.
I'm trying to send large files, but then everybody can access who wants it.
Oh, we what?
All right, so it is recording, so there we go. The magic, that simple. Good evening, Roger.
Good evening.
Pardon me.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
once you're underway, could you just please remind everybody to turn off their video until they're the active speaker, because we're having bandwidth issues. We are in rural Alberta, after all.
Okay. That's when our guest speaker starts talking, Kathy? Is that when you want me to do that?
I think we can do it as soon as we get the roll call done.
I mean, I can't see whose eyes are rolling when I'm.
Nobody's eyes will roll.
Is that a promise?
I have secret cameras in all their offices, and yeah.
No doubt about that.
So, Mr. Chair, if I could just take a second and I'll just give a little quick brief on just 30 seconds.
Okay, sounds good.
So most of you know me. My name's Steve McGrath. I'll be sitting in the background here helping out with Zoom. I just put my phone number in the chat. If you don't have it already, go and have a look. You might want to take a snapshot or write it down before you have a problem, because if you have a problem you can't get to chat, then that doesn't work either. One of the issues I've noticed today, right off the get-go, it sounds like two of us had it already, was my screen completely froze. And this is the first time it's ever happened to me on Zoom. And I ended up having to just restart Zoom, just log back on, and it seemed to be fine. So I don't know what that's all about. But if you find that your screen freezes, you can't access any of the buttons or anything like that, then certainly text me, call me. But restarting is probably going to work just fine. Again, yeah, just call if you need any help. You can text. I'll be watching the text menu, chat menu, but I'll probably be watching more on my phone, because if it doesn't work, the text doesn't often help us if you can't get access to it. Anyways, that's it for me, and let me know if there's anything I can help you with.
Okay, we have 21 participants. It's about 5 minutes after 6. I think we'll start this meeting. So I call the meeting to order at 6:05. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a roll call so that Cindy, our secretary receptionist, can record who's all here. So I don't know which is the best way to do this. Which way, Kathy, is the best way to do this?
I think, Mr. Chair, Cindy has a list of who's anticipated to be here. So she can go through that list, and at the end, she can just ask who she missed and just touch anyone that way. So
Awesome.
over to Cindy, yeah.
Okay, Arnold, is Arnold?
Yeah, here.
Is Del Wickstrom with Alliance? Patricia?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Edward?
Yes, I'm here.
Wes Laporte?
It's in the kitchen. Huh? No. I'm just listening.
Somebody needs to mute their microphone, because we're all going to your kitchen.
Sorry, back. Is Wes here? No. How about Doug Irving?
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you. Mark? Yep.
Yep.
Larry? No. Debbie O'Toole?
Yes, I'm here.
Doug Lefsrud? No Doug? Carly? Carly? No Carly?
Yes. Yes. Did you hear me?
Okay, now I did.
Okay.
Kevin Smook,
I am here.
Anja Howard,
Here.
Doug Lysing. No. Jordan Pryor.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. Carol Thompson,
Yeah, I'm here.
Donna Allard,
Yeah, I'm here.
Jean Vidal.
Hello, I'm here.
Thank you. Bobby. She was. Roger Epp,
I'm here.
Michael Wetch.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, and anybody who I didn't say their name, can you let me know who you are?
Wendy Bellick, Village of Edgerton.
Edgerton. Okay, anybody else?
Quinton Flint, Town of Coronation.
Coronation, Quinton. Thank you. Anybody else?
Bobby Menard, Killick Leadership with
Yeah,
no.
I
with
had
no-
you.
Oh, good. My dog just had to stop barking. It's all right.
No worries. Anybody else? No? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And it's a little different seeing everybody on a screen than it is to see everybody in person. It's kind of losing that touch, I think. But anyways, I thank you for putting in your, for attending. And I hope everyone is safe and well. What I'd like to do now is carry on, have everybody blank their screen or blank their profile until they're ready to talk, or and then my little bit more I got to talk about here is it has been my pleasure to serve as chair of the Battle River Alliance for Economic Development for operational year 2019-2020. This past year was one of solid accomplishment, both in industry, development, work completed, and relationships fostered. The Santa Trail project highlighted the many events and attractions available in the region and provided Braid with the opportunity to strengthen its working partnership with Go East of Edmonton. We also leveraged this project to increase Braid's presence on social and traditional media channels. The two value-added agricultural products, cluster development and investment attraction, attracted much positive notice from external and internal partners. These two connected efforts position the region and the municipal members of Braid for growth in this key industry. Throughout the year, Braid worked hard to, somebody's got their, is making a lot of static and noise in the, so if everybody could mute themselves, be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, Kathy, just so you're familiar, I can't mute because I'm not the host right now. So, but you can. So if you hear anything, somebody comes off unexpectedly, you can mute them.
Okay. Throughout the year, Braid worked hard to keep our website, the notice, and the other communications current and relevant. At year end, we have a stronger presence, which helps us serve our members more effectively. And finally, after many months of work, I am happy to report that Braid has secured a 3-year operational grant from the Government of Alberta to continue our important work. While the total amount of funding is reduced from 100,000 to 50,000, having a certain future will help us plan. This has been another productive year. I want to thank Braid's executive committee members and our management team for their support and hard work. I am looking forward to structuring this regional collaboration for continued success. Thank you. So now I'd like to go with the approval of the agenda. If everybody has looked at that agenda, I would like you to someone to approve it. If
I'll approve the agenda as presented. Arnold?
Arnold, thank you very much. All in favor?
Yes.
Anybody nay? Any nays? Okay, if none, then I carry the approval of the agenda. The next item is the approval of minutes from annual general meeting of June 13th, 2019. Are there any errors or omissions? If not, could I have someone make a motion to approve those meeting minutes?
I so move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Okay, all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Carried. Okay, we'll come up to the next item. Is the guest speaker, Dr. Roger Epp. If you would like to come on and tell us where we are or where we're going.
Happy to do that. And I'll say first of all that when Kathy Goulet asked me long ago about giving a talk at this AGM, long before COVID-19, I said yes, of course, and probably had in mind that there was going to be a dinner in Viking or Heisler or one of the other communities in the Braid region known for its community dinners. And so I'm kind of disappointed at that. But I want you to know that on the barbecue an hour ago, I had a lovely steak raised somewhere east of Settler and processed in Forsberg. So I feel like I was having a Braid supper just without the company. And so I really appreciate the invitation to be back in East Central Alberta, even in the way that we have to do it these days on Zoom. This is good practice for me because I'm going to be in front of a classroom like this in not too many months, and that's just the reality. So you don't know what I'm wearing, actually, and the trade-off is I don't know if you are in fact rolling your eyes or going to the kitchen or doing whatever you need to do. So we're even, I suppose. I spent 21 years in Camrose, where I learned to at the what's now the University of Alberta's Augustana campus, where I learned to pay close attention to what was happening in the region of East Central Alberta, because it told me a lot about what was happening in rural Canada. Did lots of writing, speaking on that subject, and built a stock of memories, I'd say, from all kinds of time spent in many parts of the region, on primary roads, on secondary roads. I've been thinking a lot lately in this pandemic time about a cemetery, the Catholic cemetery out at Bodo in border country, and stopping there once and just being haunted almost by all the infant graves from 1919, Spanish flu. And so I haven't forgotten how devastating events like that can be to a young community that, in that case, never really recovered. So, yeah, lots of time spent in different ways in the region. I remain a proud shareholder in the Battle River Railway. I got to drive engine 5353 once. If you live on a level crossing somewhere between Camrose and Alliance, and you remember someone laying on the horn a little loud and a little long, that might have been me. And my freezer is now stocked with the beef I was mentioning, raised near Settler, processed at Forsberg. And so I still feel attached in a way that, yeah, I will always be attached to East Central Alberta. I don't think I've ever spoken to a Braid meeting before, an AGM before, but I certainly have been familiar with the work that Braid has done over many years. If I had spoken at an AGM, let's say 15 years ago, I probably would have, because I was on about this at the time, I would have talked about two Albertas, the inside Alberta and the outer Alberta, or the other Alberta, the one east of the Calgary-Edmonton corridor, the one where people used to tell me they'd heard of the Alberta Advantage, but they were still waiting to experience it. I'm from Saskatchewan originally, so I meant this sincerely and positively, but it felt like the Saskatchewan border actually started about Camrose. And maybe that's why I like hanging around in East Central Alberta. At the time, 15 years ago or so, East Central Alberta had been through a hard decade, the decade of the 90s, mid-90s forward, in which communities struggled to save schools, hospitals, from funding cuts, struggle to save local governing authorities in all kinds of spheres, municipals, education, hospitals, from regional consolidation. And even though much of the resource wealth of the province was still being extracted at that time from places like East Central Alberta, or the pipelines ran through it, or the environmental and health risks of the resource economy were just upwind of it, there was a sense of not benefiting quite in the same way, a point I once tried to make in downtown Calgary without enough success. But already at that time, communities in that other Alberta, that outer Alberta, were different. They were older than the provincial aggregate average. They were much further from emergency wards in case someone had a heart attack. The average incomes were about 2/3 what they were in the big cities. And at that, there were lots of communities then, and I know this because I saw the data then, communities through your region where the biggest single source of income was Canada Pension Plan. Might be a minor factoid to hang on to. Provincial government used to chart those disparities across regions, but it didn't exactly advertise. Hope I'm still here. At that time, people in East Central Alberta worried about losing population. They worried about losing young people, losing health professionals, losing Main Street businesses. And about that time, 15 years ago or so, the provincial government started scrambling to I guess, regain some ground. It had been really committed to a deficit reduction policy approach almost at all costs, and it started to retreat from that. It put together a rural task force, a rural development strategy paper. It conceded that government cuts had hurt rural communities, and that it was time to reinvest, as it did in the Stelmach years, in rural housing, in healthcare, in post-secondary spaces. There was a rural development initiative with a fund that was going to be endowed for forever, and it didn't quite get there, but there was significant effort made. And maybe two things were learned at that time, and I'm a political scientist, I pay attention to these things. One of them is that rural development is hard. It's hard for governments to do even when they get their heads around that idea. It probably involves a long-term investment and longer than the election cycle. And it's hard to see what kinds of seeds will grow long-term. But the challenge is, how do you defy the laws of gravity in a market economy where investment dollars keep running downhill into the big cities, where rural too easily gets treated as a site of resource extraction or wealth extraction? Because even with that provincial investment, reinvestment in rural communities, government commissioned the Conference Board of Canada some years later to say, what's the impact? And the Conference Board said in the years 2006 to 2011 that the dial hadn't moved much. That rural Alberta, and here it matters a whole lot how you define rural Alberta, but that in rural Alberta, population in many places was still declining. Economic development was still decelerating, that was their word, and per capita income wasn't catching up. And I know you can find statistics like that still. I was on the Battle River School Division site some months ago, and Battle River said they have half the students they had 25 years ago, which I think was about the time when the division was formed through regionalization. And most of the high schools in that division have fewer than 75 students, grades 10 to 12. I can't imagine the numbers are a lot different throughout the Braid region. So rural development is hard. Defying the laws of gravity is hard. Second thing I would say is that political support for sustained reinvestment in rural Alberta is also hard. This is a very urban province. And unless you count Red Deer and Sherwood Park and places that aren't really rural, we can even argue about how rural Camrose is, but you can at least see it from there. It's been very hard for governments in this province to maintain a commitment to reinvesting in rural. And so those are a couple of observations I want to make by way of starting. And also to say, yeah, we know those are the trajectories, the big picture trajectories. And from that perspective, the first important thing that I want to say today is that BRAID is still here. And your member communities are still here. And it hasn't been easy, and there have been no guarantees along the way, but you're here. Maybe it's a little too easy to practice physical distancing in some parts of the BRAID region, but you're here, which means you've got a chance to do things as you're doing, to work together, and not just surrender to some fate that someone else has in mind for you. And I know the region to be full of creativity, initiative, good people, and I think some important assets. So that's the first point to register. If I was a better academic, I'd have PowerPoint slides all over this, but I'm not. When Kathy and I talked about this talk in the early weeks of the pandemic, we imagined that I'd speak directly to that impact in terms of your roles in economic development. And I do want to do that. But this week, Kathy also gave me a little bit more role with a broader title. As you've seen, Rural Alberta, where to now? Which means there are a lot of places to go with that. And maybe we've all got COVID fatigue. But I do want to start there. I am not a think tank fortune teller. I am not a markets analyst. But like you, I have been engaged in trying to figure out what's the new normal. What does recovery look like and when's it going to start? How will we notice? What's now changed so fundamentally about the way we work, live, even vacation? Not sure this is the time to either book a cruise or invest in a cruise ship line, for example. Let me offer 4 large observations and as my contribution to this meeting and your discussions. One of them is, and they're all framed around the pandemic. One of them is that the impact, one impact of the pandemic, I think, is that we will see ownership of the economy, big picture, in fewer hands. Think of all the small businesses that don't have a lot of room to absorb or hang on in the same way. And I just worry that we will come out of this with the economy in fewer hands, which means an economy less answerable to small communities, to local communities. I'm sure the pandemic has been tough on small businesses in the BRAID region, and you'd be the people really close to that reality. But even larger companies have been targeted for takeover these days by private equity firms which seem to be flush with cash. One exception might be animal agriculture. Across Western Canada, especially in Alberta, processing facilities in a highly concentrated economic sector, beef, chicken, are also COVID hotspots. Same story out of Germany this week, major processing facility. Now that might hasten for people in Toronto the rise of plant-based and lab-cultured meat if consumer trust is affected that much. But it may also finally swing the pendulum back to smaller, provincially inspected processing points like Forestburg, like Strome. I think Strome's still operating. Like the country abattoir around Tofield, where I once was instructed to go to pick up half a lamb that I bought from a farmer in packages marked not for resale. So it might have been slightly on the edge, but it was great lamb. the point is there may be a swing on the food side, and especially on the animal side, to a more local or regional market, shorter supply chains. Now, market access to stores is an issue out of the provincially regulated or inspected plants. So is a regulatory or a regulatory environment that's not always favorable, because sometimes the phrase health and safety is about protecting market share for the big players. So I hope that in these next months, I will encourage you to become advocates for a more decentralized processing system. You're positioned well for it. You have assets. Become the champion. One other thought about that economy that's potentially moving to fewer and fewer hands. This is a time where on one hand, people are losing work and they're losing savings, but the impact has been, it seems, highly unequal. Others reportedly are saving money at record rates. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to spend it? And it's always a challenge in rural Alberta to figure out how do you keep local capital in local circulation as long as you can, rather than ship it downstream to the global investment pools. How do you keep local capital in local circulation? You've got at least one regional credit union, I think, that has an expanded presence, Battle River. ATB is still an important presence, banking presence in East Central Alberta. Push them. Push them to help you think about local investment, local economy, keeping local capital in circulation, because there is some at play. So that's point one. Who's going to own the economy post-pandemic? Fewer people, fewer hands, or more? Second point. Second impact of the pandemic, I think, is accelerated digitization of the economy. Here we are meeting on Zoom. Digitization of the economy and just about everything else. Health, telehealth, education. All those people who are going to be working from home more, not just temporary. Some of this digitization is going to be long-lasting. But the story of northern and rural Canada that you know well is the story of the digital divide. This is a profoundly unequal space. Bandwidth matters. In rural development circles, the last mile has been talked about for a couple of decades. The divide doesn't seem to close. And I would suggest that now is the time to keep pushing governments. I note that there was a recent federal announcement about rural bandwidth. Hold government to those promises. It's basic infrastructure for you. It increasingly will be basic infrastructure. It will be important for your kids. It will be important for your health. It will be the way in which people find your economy. This is critical, I think, to rural places as just about anything. A third impact, and this is maybe a more tentative point on my part, is that the pandemic has given a push to a trend that people have already observed in the US and Canada. That is a movement out of the largest cities, especially by young people, into more affordable, less congested, at least medium-sized, mid-sized cities, and sometimes into smaller places, as long as they're within occasional driving distance of larger centers. There are people whose choices are in play for you. Add to that newcomers to Canada, who tend to move to the cities, but not always by choice, not always by preference. In some respects, then, location is going to matter less than it has. But it will matter absolutely if bandwidth isn't there, if the local school has already been shuttered, if the hospital can't handle emergencies, if aging in place is not a possibility, if resettlement services for newcomers just aren't there, and if rural communities have been turned into bedroom communities, hollowed out in that way, and you have to get onto the highway to shop for everything, or eat a meal, or have a beer, or go to church. Local economies, local institutions often operate on the edge. They're reliant on committed people who run businesses or run volunteer organizations. I think they're also a vital cog in your economic futures and should be recognized as such. This is the time to provide that kind of neighborly support. So that's three things. This leads me to a fourth and final pandemic impact observation. And I'm a political scientist, so you have to grant me this one. Except it's not so much about the pandemic. It is in a way. Point is this: it's time to brace for a contraction of the provincial government. I worry that it's going to make the Klein years seem easy. COVID-19 is not the cause. It certainly has made some of this more urgent. In some ways, it could be the political cover for what was being ruled out anyway. When we step back, well, I would say, I have been saying, that in Alberta, the structure of our public finances has been more precarious than we've wanted to really admit for a long time, and more precarious than we've wanted our political leaders to admit. Remember Jim Prentice's look in the mirror comment in the 2015 election about people who expect high levels of services, new schools, whatever, without wanting to pay for them. And he said, not sure we can keep this going. And I guess you could say he paid for it. But the assumption has always been, that's what oil and gas royalties are for. Though they are highly volatile revenue sources, absolutely, and that's not a surprise. Given the state of the industry now, and it'd be interesting if we were in a room together, I'd be interested in what's happening in East Central Alberta. But given the state of the industry, there is the old, let's wait till the oil economy comes back and we'll be rescued from having to make hard decisions. I don't think that's in the cards. The reckoning is coming. It's on the near horizon. And I worry that it will hit rural Alberta especially hard. No matter how you voted, there's no getting around this. Schools, hospitals, obvious targets will be in some jeopardy, and with them the good professional jobs that attracted some of your educated kids back to your communities. Government has shielded rural school divisions a little with a new funding formula that defers the impact of declining enrollment, but only defers it. And so there are a number of things on the horizon that I think are worrying if you think from the point of view that what matters a whole lot is the health and vibrancy of rural communities. One of them is that rural healthcare will suffer if there is, in fact, the exodus of doctors that's been threatened over changes to their billing. An exodus from emergency rooms are very much at risk in places. Rural obstetrics is at risk. Doctor from Pinoka wrote a column in one of the papers, I think it was in the Calgary Herald, where he worried about the end of full service rural medical care. Why? That's a challenge. Rural municipalities have been seeing grants cut. They're expected to pay maybe 3 times more for policing. We all have heard the stories, and I expect that East Central Alberta has its own share of these, about all the unpaid oil and gas company taxes to municipalities. Not sure you're going to see a lot of that. So impact on municipalities, serious impact. And then I need to put in a plug, because I'm listing my worries right now, for that small University of Alberta campus in Camrose, Augustana, at which I spent 2 good decades and where many people in your communities have attended. A genuine post-secondary presence in rural Alberta. And the University of Alberta is now facing $100 million in budget cuts, and it's going to make some choices. I was reassured to see this week an open letter from 4 former MLAs, including 2 cabinet ministers from the region, Progressive Conservative, NDP, speaking in defense of that campus. And I would say count it as another asset for the Braid region, alongside the abattoirs, alongside the railway, alongside the credit union and ATB. Count that campus as an asset. It's one tool for reversing the flow of young people out, and instead being a tool for bringing them into the region. And I probably said more than enough to stoke a good prairie fire. And I'm not saying that a financial correction wasn't due. Not saying that it's time for a fundamental rethink of public finances, spending and revenue in this province. It's unavoidable. Unavoidable now for sure. But experience has shown, it seems to me, that when government contracts, when it shrinks, rural communities and rural regions get hit hard, especially if those cuts are delivered with the finesse of a hammer. What is the impact? Well, it means that the driving distances of everyday life are stretched to the breaking point. Social and economic infrastructure, the kind of foundations on which you do your work, are at risk. And all the small incremental steps you've taken over the lifetime of Braid in support of economic development, local economies, local jobs, is also, well, at risk. And I don't want to overstate this, but this is, it just feels like we are in for a time of reckoning. The future of rural communities is always for rural people to make. And those of you who have a long time stubborn attachment to the places and the families and the communities you're from, know that you don't give up on these places easily. You also know that there are cycles of return where people, young people especially, will move away and then come back, as long as there's something to be coming back to. And that's been the cyclical history of lots of rural places. Depends when you take the snapshot. But we've entered a time in the history of this province, I think, when that future, what can rural Alberta be? What can East Central Alberta be? What can't it be anymore? Is also going to be shaped by decisions made in Edmonton. This is by now a very urban province. The electorate is a very urban electorate. And probably bears saying that you shouldn't think you've got a rural champion in the provincial government that can protect you from all this. This is an urban province. The policy agenda is really, I think, dictated out of Calgary. And so now is the time to be political for yourselves. Now is the time for you to say with clarity, here's what our interests are. Here's what rural and regional community interests are. Here's what's at stake. Here's who our allies are, other RETAs, the RMA, AUMA, schools. This is the time to be laser focused. Don't be distracted by talk of Western independence or a referendum on equalization. This is not a particularly partisan point on my part. It's a way of saying that the issues that matter on the ground for you, that enable or limit the kind of community futures you have in mind, are mostly decided at the provincial level right now. And my encouragement to you would be to say, don't make it easy. Don't be the collateral damage in a post-pandemic Alberta. Don't make it easy. Feels like maybe rural Alberta, maybe rural everywhere, goes through the ringer about once in a generation, where there is a real restructuring that goes on. And this is your turn. And I want to, well, I'm very interested to see what you think in response to what I've said, because I laid a lot of stuff out in a short space of time. But I want to end by wishing you all the best in Battle River country as you face that generational challenge. And I know you're going to do it with all the creativity you've shown in the past, all the resilience you've shown in the past, and all the neighborliness that's there ready to be awakened, because you know that there's no point surviving on your own. It only makes sense in rural Alberta if you survive with neighbors. So thanks for listening and for inviting me. And I'm not sure what happens now, but I think I will turn things over to those in charge.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Epta. That was amazing. And like you said, a lot of information given to us and lots to think about. It really, really is. You know, like I know for myself, you don't think about a lot of what you've talked about, you know, but it's there. It's there every day. It's in our lives, and so true. And I just want to say thank you very much for your presentation tonight. It was awesome. And Kathy, would you?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think we do have time for a few questions. I think if anybody wanted to do that.
Okay, so yeah, floor is open for questions for Dr. Epp. So anybody wishing to speak, please. Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Thanks. Doctor, when I hear you about the Augustana situation, and I guess the question would be, when the purse strings are controlled from head office out of Edmonton, essentially, and not really directly from the province, perhaps, that's a real conundrum. Would you agree? And what's the options there? I strongly, firmly believe that Augustana. I had 2 kids go there, and many of our people here went to Augustana in this meeting. I know for sure, and it's a gem. But that is a dilemma when the province isn't necessarily directly funding it. It's, you know what I mean? What can we do in a situation like that?
Well, I think I think there are two sets of decisions being made. Some of them are being made by the province. Some of them are being made within the university, and the university is its own big, complex entity. But I think it's important for both those audiences to know that campus matters to people. And again, that you're not going to make it easy. I think the risk, and I've spent a lot of time inside the University of Alberta system, both in Camrose and then in Edmonton. The risk is always not enough people know what happens there, or it seems small, or it seems superfluous if you're not at the center of things. And I think it's always it's important for people to know that this matters to the region. It's important for the university to hear that. They're going to bring in their, so there are two things going on. The provincial government has now engaged a consultant out of the US to do a quick review of the post-secondary system and make recommendations. I think the system is going to look more like the Australian model, which is much more, it's more economically driven. And not saying that's a bad thing, but there are ways in which that plays to the big players. So that's in motion. So the province does have a secondary role in this, but the university is also establishing a working group to look at maybe 3 different options for the future. And I don't know what that's going to look like, but this is the time to mobilize the region and say, that campus matters to us.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions on the floor?
This is Quentin from the town of Coronation. I had a question that's maybe related. I'm trying to see if it fits.
Okay, go ahead.
So in rural Alberta, I'm seeing a lot of repetition in the way that a lot of communities are trying to engage, how communities are trying to interact with the bigger cities or however. Do you think that more self-identity needs to be made in rural Alberta for us to be more encouraged and more enticing to bring people back? I just feel like every small urban is very cookie cutter. It's the same as the next one over to the next one over to the next one over. So is there maybe some sort of way that small urbans should start maybe making themselves different to stand out better?
It's in it. Probably you've thought about this an awful lot, and I'd be interested in hearing your thinking more about this. I think there's something to what you say, and part of the story is getting people off the big highways. That there are a lot of people who, again, this is a very urban province, and even if we're just looking at Alberta for now, we look nationally. I think a lot of people tend to fly over from Toronto to Vancouver, so there's not a lot of familiarity with the world outside the corridor, at least once you get past Banff and Jasper. So part of it is just finding ways to bring people into your communities and quickly establishing a sense that this is an interesting place. Something's going on here. I felt really sorry for County of Flagstaff, which put some great money into some great looking travel brochures, and maybe your municipalities have done the same. And I'm not sure this is the year when people are going to take advantage of it, but maybe they will. Maybe Albertans will. I thought, what a great way to invite people. Of course, you need web presence. Back to that digital economy. But yeah, I think ways of pulling people off the big highway and out of the air into some of your communities, and then somehow thinking about what's going to strike people quickly enough so that they stop, so that they spend some time here and get past maybe the stereotypes sometimes. Yeah, maybe I'll stop there. Maybe you've got a response to that, Quentin.
Well, yeah, because I guess my biggest point to that is, is there a way, I mean, we've killed studies to death in Alberta with every community. We do studies on everything. It's almost like a question of what can a community do to really make itself known? And I think that you're nailing it right on the head. That the corridors basically sucked everything in, and it's kind of left this weird void where anything outside of the corridor is just kind of left behind. And I find that with small rurals, it's even harder because it's more of a seniors community based, and then you get into this whole stigma of, well, there's nothing there for me. So to try and bring back the younger generation, I think it's important, like you're saying, what you're saying. But how do you do that to retain them in order to grow? I find it very interesting that, you know, there's room to grow, but there's no room to grow, if that makes sense.
You've probably done this, and I think there are ways in which every consultant wants to do some of this work, to think about what are your assets? How do you map your assets? So I don't want to, you know, have you go down a road you've been down before, but when I think of rural regions that have really turned a corner, that I've been to, you know, lots of different places, it's like there's one thing that maybe turns it around. I've been in places in rural Nova Scotia where probably 20 years ago or 30 years ago, there was not a lot happening. And someone planted a few grapevines, and all of a sudden there was a winery. And actually they made pretty good wine. And next door, the people with sheep and a small scale wool industry set up. And so you have these pockets that are just interesting, and they do draw people. They draw tourists, they draw people out of the cities. And so I don't know what the equivalent would be. I think there are some great farms in the Braid region that if people actually are interested in where their food comes from, maybe there is a way to invite and package that, again, that gives people a taste, an introduction, a way of saying there's more going on here than you think. And there are more creative people here than you think. There are some great community theaters throughout the region. The Palace in Daysland is one of my favorites. And again, local people made it happen. And because they did, people stopped there. It's a destination. And so, I don't know, I think, yeah, the big laws of gravity are not in your favor. But that doesn't mean that there aren't ways to create niches and maybe build on something. And maybe it's hard to tell when you're doing it, what that thing is. But when you see successful rural areas, there tends to be something new and interesting that that gets built on. That maybe people are there because the land is inexpensive, because something is inexpensive. And then the right people come along and no one gets in the way and it grows. And it's a pretty elusive and pretty general answer, I know, and I appreciate the issue. But I wonder if encouraging, finding ways to invest in the energy that you see and invest in the creativity that you see. At the opposite end of the spectrum, and I know this isn't the future you have in mind, rural Alberta has gone through stages where communities have been bidding against each other for the worst sorts of investments. And that's a different kind of competitive road downhill. And I know you're talking about something completely, or really at the other end. Some of that you can do regionally. Some of that you are doing regionally is that differentiation. Get people out on a road trip. But it is a hard exercise. The road is way shorter going into the city than coming out.
And I got another question now, because that led to another thing. So, and I mean, I apologize to the counselors because it's going to be a thing against counselors, but it's a thing that I've always wanted to ask someone that, you know, political science, especially from the university. Do you find, or do you think that with the age demographics within the municipal councils, do you think that maybe that's part of some of the stagnation, that there's a lot of momentum for the younger people, but then the older people are watching those dollars a little bit more sensible and being the conservatives and, you know, holding accountability there, where maybe the bigger cities don't do that as much, and you're seeing that younger people tend to flock to where things are happening? Is that kind of a thing, or is that just maybe my thought process?
Well, so let me echo what I think is implied in your question, which is to say that municipal governments ought to be a really important player in this. And that I do think that from time to time, maybe you see this often in rural Alberta, not always, not every council, not every county or MD, absolutely, but a sense of not really pushing the creativity around what can municipal government do. I see some great counterexamples. If you get on that Battle River Railway, for example, you come to the park. I see, Anya, you're on the call from County of Camrose. That little park that used to be a gravel pit is it's a small little gem, but it's a piece of creativity. And I think municipal councils can be ready to invest in that kind of energy and creativity. Don't have to do it all yourself, but don't sell short the powers of local government. I guess is what I'd say. I hope we're not due for another round of regionalization on the municipal side, because I think it'll take 10 years for regional councils to sort themselves out. There are powers there. Be creative with them. Look around to see who is doing something really interesting at the municipal level. And I think that can make a difference, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. Quentin, any other comments or questions, and other people from the floor?
I'd be here all night asking questions, so I'll just let someone else go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions?
Actually, hey, it's Jordan here from Flagstaff County. I thought I would just add, we had a workshop this past Wednesday with Jared Smith, and Jared's from Edmonton. He's really well known in the business community. Carly's going to be able to relate to this too, because she was there, but he made a really funny comment, because we're like, oh, like move out to Flagstaff County or MD of Wainwright. And he was like, well, I would, but no one's ever invited me before. You know, so there's that gap in communication. And you guys can't see me right now, but I'm 28, so I'm a bit younger, but my generation is definitely moving more online. So I know with Flagstaff County moving forward, we're going to be doing more online campaigns and videos, because videos are huge right now in 2020 when it comes to engagement and trying to promote tourism, especially for the younger generation. And we are finding that the younger generation is moving back to the county, but you have to pull them back. And now, because of COVID, there's a number of people that are wanting to, like Roger said, they want to move to a rural area. They just don't know what opportunities we have right now. So we have to try and throw those opportunities in front of them as much as we can.
Okay, thank you very much for that comment. Any other comments on the floor or questions?
It's Quentin again. I actually do have another one. So with smaller municipalities and counties at this point, would it be recommended for a political point to start moving away from that oil and gas industry and start being more, like you said, more creative in other industries? If you think that way, how do you start getting people to process and think that way as well?
Well, you said you were from Coronation. What's the state of oil and gas out your way?
It's pretty dead. I mean, I wouldn't say it's completely gone. There's still some activity, but it's minimal. A lot of companies have laid off their employees due to the price, right? So I mean, if they're not making $40 a barrel, then there's really no point of running it well. So a lot of them have been closed in for the time being. We are seeing a little bit of movement now where some companies are bringing some employees back to open up, some wells, but it's really hard, I think, for a lot of the companies in this area to actually process anything more than 40, right? So.
Well, it feels to me, but here again, I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not a market analyst. It does feel to me like oil and gas, in the way that we're not going to see another boom, not a conventional boom. Most of the big investment in Alberta for years had been going to the oil sands anyway. The big players were mostly there. And it, don't want to sound un-Albertan, because I get how so much identity is wrapped up in that industry. But I think it's not going to be the cornerstone of the next economy of Alberta, not all the way through. And it's not going to be the employment source it's been not all the way through Alberta. And so there has to be a shift away. It hasn't been the source of municipal tax revenue that it's been for some of your municipalities for a long time. And so that kind of transition, I think, is in play. One of the impacts is that so long as that industry is in trouble, or if it's not coming back in the same way, it means that one way for young people to stay in the community is not going to be there in the same way it's been. Or one way to combine the oil patch and farming, for example, is not going to be there in the same way. But that just may be the reality. And it does seem, I'm not saying that municipalities or local communities have to bear the weight of all this thinking on your own. It seems like this is where there is a role for the provincial government in leading a big conversation, a hard conversation about what's the next economy here and how much do we continue to invest. And we are investing good public money now in oil and gas and the related infrastructure and the refining. What's the next economy? How much is oil and gas a player in that economy? What else do we need to make sure we're doing? And how do we make sure that the benefits of that next economy are distributed geographically so they're not just in the cities? That's the provincial, that's provincial leadership. That's the kind of conversation that's difficult to have, but one we need a provincial government to lead. Sounds like I'm running for office. I'm not. In my marriage contract, I can't.
Thank you. Any other questions on the floor?
I don't have a question for you, Dr. Epp, but I do want to say that it's not the easiest task to speak to a bunch of blank black spaces with people's names in them. And thank you very much for taking the time to come talk to us, because I think your words were really wise.
Thank you.
And I offer those same sentiments. They are, wise information and very knowledgeable. And thank you very much. Kathy, do you have anything further to say? Hello, Kathy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great.
Any other comments that you'd like to make?
Other than, and Dr. Epp might blush, I'm a huge fan of Dr. Epp's. And
are you going to say how we met in the elevator?
Do you want me to do that, or are you going to do that? It was very funny. Dr. Epp was in I was in Yellowknife doing some work for some First Nations there. Dr. Epp was in Yellowknife doing some work as well. And I got on the elevator at the Explorer Hotel and saw this gentleman with a satchel that said Dr. Roger Epp. And I looked at him and I fanned, him, and my eyes glazed over and I went, "Are you Dr. Roger Epp?" He's like, "Yes, I am. I think he wanted to get out of that elevator as quickly as he possibly could." But in all seriousness, when I did my master's and did a lot of research around rural economy and rural leadership, I referenced a ton of material from Dr. Epp, and that's where I got to be familiar with his work, and just really pleased that you were able to be here this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, and once again, thank you very much for attending, Dr. Epp. It's been a pleasure, and we will talk to you later.
Okay, I hope you don't mind if I might just listen in for the next while.
Oh, absolutely. You're more than welcome to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Kathy, I guess the next item is item 5, presentation of the 2019-20 Braid Annual Activity Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just going to scroll down here again. And I have prepared for you a very brief overview of the work that Braid has done in the last year. And I'm going to try to remember to pull when I hit the one less trip piece, some comments from some of Dr. Epps' comments as well. So as you know, this year for Braid, we've worked very hard around the whole issue of, is there a way within the region to pull more wealth creation from the value-added ag industry? Within the Braid region, agriculture is definitely a dominant, and so it makes sense to look at of the resources, of the crops being grown, of the animals being raised. You know, is there a way to pull more money out of all of that work? And so we did a number of things over the year, and I'm just going to talk about really generally some of it. So we did, as you will know, started back in 2018 looking at how you get at some of this and switching the conversation a little bit from what do we have to offer to what does the market demand, and trying to then sort of marry those up. So that led us down to attending a plant protein summit, which came out of a tour in February 2019 for the Plant Protein Alliance of Alberta. And that led us into looking at developing out a pro forma business case for a fractionation plant that's available on Braid's website. It led us into a cluster development project and looking again at what are the best avenues from an industry. So we switched things on their heads a bit. We've done, as a lot of other organizations have done, community consultation work around what the region is interested in seeing developed. In the last year and a half, we've turned that on its head and asked industry what they're looking for. And so we're getting closer and closer to some really good answers there. And certainly we're being pushed, I think, in that plant protein direction. One of the things that we identified as well was that seed cleaning plants are a big asset, or potentially a big asset, in diversifying the agricultural industry. And so we started out by gathering some information, and then we went to a regional seed cleaning plant roundtable in November. And you know what? We've just had good success now of engaging and bringing representatives, managers, and chairs from the seed cleaning plants to the conversation, right, around what development of the agricultural industry in the region is going to look like. Keeping going, you know, it was a busy year. We did a Fractionation 101 workshop with Plant Protein Alliance of Alberta and PPAA and the other sponsors of the event. Alberta Farm Credit was one. Could not believe, actually, how many people we had show up in Killam. I think it was the cooking and the fact that it was at the at the theater, but also just the fantastic content and how well it was attended, how strong that event was. And we rolled from that right into then a regional value-added ag forum on March 10th in Camrose. And again, very well attended. And the nice thing we're starting to see, again, coming out of the seed cleaning plant operators as well, is we're starting to see industry players show up for some of these things. So for those of you who have been around economic development in rural Alberta as long as I have, you see a lot of these events held, and you look around the room and you realize that most of the people there are God love us everyone, either in economic development, an elected official, or from the government, or they're the consultant who wrote the report. And you don't always see a really strong presence from industry. So we're starting to see that. And the nice thing also coming out of that is we've got industry players who want to be part of that solution. So we're really building that momentum. And so going into this year, we've got approval for a Can Export Community Initiative project that's going to take that whole thing forward for another year. The board, the executive, approved the RFP today. It's going out. We are, as always, short of money, and we are resisting. We have not asked the member municipalities who've supported us in the past because we know you're strapped. So we're trying to think of and go to new and different sources of partnership, and we're going to be working on that over the next couple of months. That was a big piece of work. In the energy sector, I wish I could say for our friends in Hardisty that we had as much success. We took 2 cracks at delivering a regional roundtable on energy. And in both cases, one I think went down for weather, and the other, I believe. And then the second one, we were planned, and we were trying to organize a tour at the tank farm in Hardisty. And we were sort of getting there, and then COVID hit. So we have that on our radar. We need to do something there this year. This is the one that kind of hit me when I was listening to Dr. Epp, was the tourism industry development. So Braid ran a very small project last year coming off of One Less Trip program that a lot of you would remember, which is promoting regional retail support and encouraging people to travel around the region to shop in the region and support local businesses. You know, that was a really great little project. We got a ton of good comments and support from the businesses and attractions that participated. And the thing that we got as feedback was that people didn't know even the very unique stores, restaurants, and events that happened sort of just down the highway from them. So we don't have a redo of Santa Trail or One Less Trip in the budget this year because we were unsuccessful in getting funding for it through CARES. But Mr. Chair, I might rethink that one and see if there's something that we can do. Yeah, after COVID, when things open up, we'll see. But Dr. Epp has my wheels just turning here. So the other piece that we spent a lot of time on this year was sustainability and governance. And I would love to say that we're smooth sailing in terms of funding, and we didn't have to spend a lot of time lobbying, advocating, cajoling, harassing anybody who would listen to extend RETA funding. It took 18 months, support from RMA, many municipal elected officials, many MLAs, AUMA. It took a long time. We have gotten, as Brian said in his opening remarks, $50,000 a year, which is half of what we normally get in operational funds, and extended for 3 years. So that really is kind of where we thought we were hoping we would land, which really has put us into the fact that Braid has to look at restructuring and what its sustainability model looks like going forward. So that's something I'll be talking to everybody about over the summer. So expect a phone call. In terms of bylaw and policy, worked our way through some of those things, held our meetings and our executive meetings now virtually, not in person. So it's been a busy year. There's been a lot of other small things that have happened, but those are sort of the bigger pieces. Bobby Menard is up next to talk about communications because that has been a big push for Braid as well. And she has handled that exclusively. So just want to say in conclusion, thank you all very much for your support over the year. It's been really rewarding, really challenging. And I have a lot of confidence in our ability as an organization going forward to continue to do good work. Mr. Chair, that is my activity report for the year.
Okay, thank you very much, Kathy. Any comments or questions on it? Okay, if not, then I would like someone to make a motion to accept the annual activity report from Kathy as presented.
I can make that motion, Wendy from the Village of Edgerton.
Thank you very much, Wendy. All in favor? I guess let's go this way. Any nays? I'll assume none. Carried. Okay. Kathy, I guess then next up would be Bobby.
Yes. So Bobby, we're over to you.
Hello, everyone. Just give me half a moment to expand my screen. Okay. So this particular report focuses on the two main outbound pieces that Braid has existing, and I'll get to the reason why towards the end, and how the purpose of communications we believe can be optimized to get Braid's voice out into the region. And it's based on a relationship development idea that when Braid speaks to people on social media, we start to develop some of that attraction and traction. So Nodus, our bi-monthly newsletter, we've had an entire year to develop statistics. And I will say that the people who are engaged in Nodus are highly engaged. The open rate is exceptional. And inside the statistics, you have had open rates as high as more than 50%. And they're starting to get notice from, people are starting to pay attention to very specific sorts of things. So I have now sent out 8 bi-monthly, so over the course of 16 months, issues of Nodus, we are starting to finally have enough data to see patterns. And the things that Braid clearly owns as messaging are starting to do better and better. So that includes Braid long-term initiatives, and we're promoting those more and more often. Local successes, absolutely people are interested in what is happening inside our communities. And we can see that based on who's clicking on them and where. So the higher our open rate, the more clicks we get, and people really enjoy seeing local initiatives. And we are, we have one standout issue, if you were to look at the Nodus statistics, where we went above 50% open rate. That was COVID related. So I think we will revert to the norm of about 45% open rate. And when we promoted the list of local approaches to the COVID response, because we found there was a huge gap in the information marketplace in the early days of COVID. So information about COVID was everywhere from many, many sources, and we don't have the resources to compete except on the information that belongs to Braid as a region, which is our communities. It was very widely opened. We had several compliments come in from places that we weren't really expecting and didn't really realize people were paying that close of attention. So well done, everybody. My entire role was to go around and collect your activity and send it out to our stakeholders. And there was a lot of people who were very, very impressed to see all of your excellent responses in a rural setting. As a tool of communications, that does a couple of things. It signals agility, it signals sophistication, and a whole bunch of old-fashioned caring, which at that point in the year was it's not that it was not in short supply, it was just difficult to demonstrate. So that was really a highlight of the year. The other piece that we are extremely active on is Twitter. We have done 2 different strategic approaches to Twitter. One is original tweeting, and the other is spending, when COVID hit, we spent a tremendous amount of time shifting to the strategy of engaging with people who are still working on economic development and distributing and re-engaging with content that was relevant and useful to our local communities. So what that left us with is our follower count is up by more than 10% in the space of 12 months. And we've seen a real shift in the quality of those followers. So we're interacting more with our peer groups, with our communities. I see Flagstaff my goodness, whoever's doing your tweeting, well done. And they like our tweets. And Flagstaff is actually one of the, whoever runs social media for the county Flagstaff, they are acting like a lever, and we are reciprocating with them. And when we tweet and retweet each other, we're getting more and more traction. So I did want to call them out on purpose. We did really well all year, but when in March, April, and May of this fiscal year, everything went all over the map. And I cannot deliver reasonable statistical analysis of how we grew in the last 3 months, in the last quarter of this fiscal, because COVID absolutely changed everything. And additionally, the political commentary on Twitter inside Alberta has become more and more acutely toxic. There is no polite way to put that. You don't even want to see what normal, rational people are posting on some days. So we have sought to seek out a space to engage with other people who are endeavoring in the same fields that we are. That's agriculture, that's rural economic development, that's community-based leadership, that is investing in schools and education with long-term economic outputs, and we're seeing some real success there. So that is the tone that we are taking, that there is still absolutely good work being done, and we're starting to see growth and engagement there again. And one of the ways I included a graph from Twitter, which does not provide statistics year over year. We are consistently seeing engagement rise up above 1,500 impressions. When I came on board with Killick here a year ago, it was rare that we made it over 1,000. So we're consistently approaching 1,000 impressions on multiple tweets per month. And it is exceedingly rare to not have a month where we don't have 1, 2, or even 3 or 4 tweets into that 1,500 to 2,500 impression range. So definitely the voice of Braid is getting out there. The report does not, this is where we are not reporting, have an update on the website. The website, strategically, it is expensive to go build audience. We are seeking to use Twitter and Nodus to drive traffic to the website, and then on an as needed basis, which is the simplest and most direct way to update the website, we'll be updating the website as we go and seeking to build audience using search engine optimization. There's definitely, if you were to really dig around on the website, some work to be done, but that right now is a piece that comes on an as needed basis with the simplest possible solutions to maintain budget and to grow audience via our outreach efforts. So that's where we're at. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Okay, if no questions, I want to say thank you very much, Bobby. Great work, and really appreciate it. Thank you for getting the word out for us.
Thanks.
Okay. Kathy, anything more you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, Brian, I think, sorry, I'm getting used to playing with buttons on the screen there and getting myself live. No, I don't think so. I would really encourage all of the member municipalities, if they have a tweet account, they tweet. If they have things that they're doing in economic development and investment attraction world that they want to share, email us. If you tweet, make sure that you tag Braid in your tweet, and we will retweet anything, that's related to economic development, business growth, investment attraction, anything like that in the region. And please do that. The more you tweet, the more active you are on social media, the more content we have to work with, and the more effective we're going to be in getting attention for Braid as a region. Bobby just came live again. Did you want to say something?
I do. Share Nodus with your friends. Badger them just a little bit and say, please sign up. There's natural attrition that happens with our subscriber list. People move jobs, and if they don't resubscribe to the email newsletter, we can't follow them. So I would sincerely encourage you to forward it to people and say, hey, you should sign up for this. That includes counselors and CAOs, because people change jobs, and we have no way, and nobody at Bright does, if you are not active in your community saying, please sign up, please engage with us, short of phone calling every time we think somebody may have moved on from a job, we can't do it without you.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Chair, I believe we're done.
Yes, thank you very much. So one more thing is we'd like to have someone make a motion to approve the communication report as presented.
I'll make that motion, Arnold Hanson.
Thank you very much, Arnold. Rather than ask for everybody in favor, let's go with any nays. Okay, if not, I will, the motion has been carried. Thank you. Okay, next item is the presentation of 2019-2020 Braid financial reports by Michael Wetch, Grant Thornton LLP.
All right, thank you all for, I guess, having me in my office tonight, but online with all of you. And definitely a kudos to Dr. Epp on his presentation there. As a business advisor, accountant, and somebody who teaches accounting at Augustana here, that's just covered a lot of very good points, and I could love to debate that all night long and discuss further details. The one item I'll throw out there quickly is the comment on revenue generation. We are absolutely advising clients, you think taxes are bad now, give it 2 years, because somebody's got to pay for all of this. So in terms of the organization financials, the first page there, if we can skip to the notice to reader report. So the notice to reader report just details that ultimately these are management's financial statements. We haven't performed an audit or review engagement. We've taken the information, compiled it, done some cross-checking and referencing and that sort of thing. We have not had any concerns or issues in preparing the financials. In terms of the statement of operations on the next page, the interesting item to note is that revenues overall are actually $1,000 higher than prior years. So that's great that, you know, revenues are able to be a little bit higher and just so consistent. In terms of where those came from, grant and project income is down just a little bit, and membership dues were up about 12,000 year over year. Total revenues, 328,000, almost 329,000 for the current year. In terms of the expenditures, and this one, again, just varies from year to year depending on the projects that are underway. Kathy has already spoke to those. And really, obviously, the value-added agriculture project was the big spend in the year. And then we've got the professional fees, rent, one less trip, and so on. In terms of the expenses overall, expenses are up slightly, $5,000 from previous years, ultimately leaving you with an excess of revenues over expenditures of $14,797, down a little bit from last year, but still good overall. On the next page, I do want to point, normally I skip over this one pretty quick, but I will point out that during the year, the board did make the motion to transfer the internally restricted net assets. This was the funding that was held for, what was the official name? I think it was called the contingency reserve. And really what this was just in case EATC asked for some of the funding back when things were split up in previous years. So because that's been a little bit of time, board made the motion to transfer that out of internally restricted net assets into unrestricted net assets. And so you can see that $13,000 transfer on this page. In terms of the next page, what we have here is just the statement of financial position. You can see that there is still cash in the bank. Quite a bit less than in prior years, but that's really because a lot of the majority of the money that was deferred and available to be spent on projects in 2020 was spent. The accounts receivable of 34,000 and change, that's primarily one grant amount. We did agree that to the grant documentation, and that funding was received in April. in terms of the expenses that those funds covered, those were already incurred and paid for prior to year end. Really the only other item I'll highlight out here is the deferred revenue line. So out of all of the grants that you receive, you're required to recognize it to revenue as you spend the money. And so in the current year, there was only a small amount of, I believe it was CARES Fund 2 that was left to be spent of $1,433. Overall, things were nice and clean this year. Great job to Kathy and her team. And yeah, things went well and were quite straightforward this year. So it was great.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Are there any questions or comments with regard to the financial reports? If not, could I have someone make a motion that we approve the financial report as presented?
I will, Brian.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Once again, I'll ask for all nays for the motion. Hearing none, I will carry the motion as presented. Okay, the next item then. Thank you very much, by the way, for your presentation there, Michael. Thank you. Okay, next item is the appointment of the accounting firm. Each year we have to, at our AGM, we have to appoint an accounting firm. And our recommendation is to appoint Grant Thornton LLP as the Brady accounting firm for 2020-2021. So if someone would like to make a motion with regards to that.
I will, Debbie O'Toole, Viking.
Debbie, thank you very much. Once again, I'll ask for all nays. If there are none, the motion has been carried. Thank you. Okay, I guess the next item up is we will go to a round table. But before we do that, Cindy, did you want to let us know who has checked in since we have, since the beginning of the meeting?
They have to tell me who's checked in because I don't know.
Okay.
So, but we should be able to figure that out while we do the round table, right?
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to call out the people as they're on your, as you've got them marked off and they can do a presentation?
Yeah.
Thank you.
First, I have Associate Member Arnold Hansen.
This is for the round table. If anybody would, if you'd like to speak, Arnold.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Just being that I'm an associate member and my mainstay in life is agriculture, where things are moving ahead slowly. If we all have a boat and start to plant rice pretty soon, we'll be right in it. But other than that, the agriculture seems to be moving ahead, and listening to Dr. Epp, it makes me quite excited that talking about, instead of oil and gas, we're talking about agriculture, which is the #1 thing that brings the region through. We have a couple of new elevators being built in the region and some new facilities happening all around. So I think we're looking quite forward to it. And I like the statement that Dr. Epp said about animals. I raise cattle, so if people are wanting some meat and help me get some arbiters going together, we could get together and sell a lot of things. But other than that, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arnold.
So from Alliance, do we have Del Wickstrom? Oh no, he didn't, sorry, he wasn't here. We'll move down to Camrose to Patricia.
Good evening, everybody. Things are slowly coming back to normal in Camrose. We had quite a few stores shut down for the COVID period, and a lot of them sort of started their openings, but now we're back to almost all of them being open. We're seeing really good compliance, especially in our big retailers, with the social distancing rules. So we had a staff member liaising with them kind of continuously throughout COVID to make sure that those social distancing orders were kept in place, and they did really well. So now we're into the relaunch sort of phase in the economic recovery plan. So we're looking at kind of a big campaign for the second half of the year around a stay local, support local kind of thing, which I'm sure everybody is. Of note, we've had a rally advertised for this Friday in the community, and it sparked an online war, I guess. And what probably, if nobody had kind of commented at all, it probably would have been about 6 people in front of a building. But it's turned into quite a big thing, so we're not really sure what to expect tomorrow night, but we've certainly got more traffic through the front door of City Hall to complain about the rally or support the rally than we've had for almost anything else. So it's kind of, it's unfortunate that that kind of really strong reactions are happening, but we have had significant number of inquiries around value-added agriculture in the last 2 weeks. Everything from a very small hemp manufacturing business up into 1,000 employee multi-acre manufacturing facility. So it seems that the value-added word is getting out, and definitely within the last 2 weeks, investment inquiries have really started to come in one after the other. So I think it's a good sign. But of course, on the other hand, we've got, as Dean Epp mentioned, things are really tenuous for Augustana right now. There's issues in the sports program, and certainly the cuts in education funding are concerning. We see the verbiage around the that American firm that's been asked to relook at education in Alberta, and that facility or institutions need to be more entrepreneurial, as kind of a warning sign that there may be more cuts to come. And certainly we want to start having conversations with our elected officials early on to say it's really important to have rural education. So we're starting to have those conversations, and we got $1.6 million, but don't say anything till 9 o'clock tomorrow, from the provincial government for an airport runway overlay. And so that announcement, I guess I shouldn't have said it, but don't say anything until tomorrow morning, through the STIP grant program. So we're very happy about that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Patricia.
So then Quentin from Coronation. Is he still here?
Yeah,
Nope.
sorry. Couldn't find the unmute button.
Sorry.
So yeah, Coronation seeing a little bit of a weird dynamic. We're still kind of closed, but we haven't really slowed down as much as most communities. So it's been kind of interesting to see that dynamic of how we were kind of already functioning at a lower capacity. We are working really well with BRIOC. We've helped over 207 businesses in our local region combat COVID-19 issues. So we've been working really diligently to provide them with business marketing plans, business plans, small grant funding. We've also been kind of looking at even finding ways to give out small business loans to those that are in real need. We've had really good success with the program. The program's worked really, really well. We're getting a lot of business up in Flagstaff area and within the whole Phoenix region. So the dynamic there is where each community is also eligible for $20,000 through the BRIOC program to help their businesses locally and to come up with their own business strategy as well as the municipality. So it's kind of a really neat dynamic that we're working with private industry, we're working with consultants, and we're collaborating with our local businesses as well to try and see if there's any ways we can improve them as well as improve what we need to do as municipalities as well. So that program's been really well received. We've been working towards a new arena here in town as well. So we've we were awarded $100,000 for an APC grant with the Painted Earth municipality. So we're working now to try and do a design and a model. We skipped the whole feasibility study, and we've skipped the whole study period of it because I don't believe in them at all. So I make sure that we don't do them anymore and save us some thousands of dollars. So we've been working really well with our engineers. We've got a committee set up to start promoting that and finding ways to work with our local businesses as well. So we actually might have partnered up with a couple of them to get products done that needs to build the building. Instead of getting monetary funds, we're actually getting fund or support in programs and not in physical labor, I guess is the best way to put it. We're getting that instead of funding. So it's actually helping out. It's going to cost, or it'll end up costing around $400,000 for that portion of their support. So other than that, we've been just kind of going steady here with regular business as usual, and trying to make sure that we find new alternative ways to be different and set ourselves off on the map, and working hard on figuring out how to do our economic development, trying to enhance that as much as we can. We're now in the the mindset of we're just gonna have to do it ourselves in some ways and figure it out. So that's why I ask a lot of economic development questions. So that's all I have for coordination at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
So Edward from Daysland.
Well, I'm not going to say too much. Otherwise, it'd be a long, drawn-out meeting. So I'll make it very short and just say, everybody enjoy the summer. Keep social distancing in mind. And that's it from me.
By the way, Ed, I just have one comment. Did you have time to cook your steaks?
It was very quick. More or less, I put everything down my mouth very quickly.
Okay, thank you.
So Edgerton, do we have Wes or Wendy?
Yeah, Wes is here.
Okay.
Yeah, so no, we've been working hard here in Edgerton, trying to keep costs low for the residents. We managed to keep taxes at par. We expanded our security camera kind of network. That's an increasingly important asset that I think a municipality can have. We're working on expanding and maintaining our walking trails. We've got several kilometers worth. Actually, just today, we rolled out a new program for residential lots that are owned by the village. So we are now selling lots for $1. There's a whole bunch of conditions on how that works, but that's a pretty aggressive campaign to try to grow our residential tax base. Yeah, and that's kind of it for me. I know Carly Herbert from Wainwright has another update. I hope she has time to share. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, so next we have Doug from Hardesty. Is Doug still with us? If not, Mark from Holden.
Yes, I'm here. Pretty slow here, but things are opening up a bit. The gallery, the museum, and the theater have opened up to COVID rules. So there's a little entertainment, and markets now open. Other than the way the restaurants and stuff have been running, it's pretty slow with the COVID. And that's about it.
Okay, I gotta go down to Viking. Debbie?
Yes, few things happening as everybody else opening up. We had our solar panel power project that is almost complete and ready to go, which would allow us to sell power back to the grid. So very excited about that. The Carina is starting to have some hockey schools come with all the HS guidelines we will have to follow, which makes it a bit of a challenge, but have had huge interest. People are wanting to get back to normal and definitely looking for ice time. So we're going to try and accommodate that, and that's going to be starting in July. The ice will go back in. We've also been very fortunate in recruiting 2 new doctors. We had 2 leave, and we've been able to replace them. So one has come already, and one will be here in the fall. And in light of all this COVID business, we actually had 1 new business open that is doing very, very well, and very happy to have them in our community. So if anybody's looking for fantastic homemade macaroons, we have a place on Main Street that you'd be very happy to come and sample. So I think that's about it for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Debbie.
Okay, so Wainwright, Carly?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So like everywhere else, we had lots of businesses closed during COVID, but most of them are open or opening with some limited hours and such like that. So we're focusing, as many are, on shop local campaigns. During COVID, we did have a positive note in that Dr. Bev Brills from Wainwright was awarded the Rural Physician of the Year award, so that was really deserving. She's been in our community for over 30 years, has a huge roster. She's a huge supporter of so many of the groups in town and the MD, so that's wonderful. They're actually coming on July 10th to do a video, and then we will be having an appreciation event whenever we can have it. So that's through RPAP. So that was some good news. We do have 1 doctor leaving in the fall, so we're just discussing how we're going to fill that. And we do have a 1 doctor coming this summer. However, she's not doing a clinic. She's more of a specialist in ER. The museum and visitor center, unfortunately, is not opening this year in Wainwright. Basically, the volunteers that run it are seniors and aren't in the best of health, so they didn't feel comfortable.
Excuse me, Carly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether you're talking too far away from the mic or not, but it's very, very hard to hear you.
Sorry.
Okay, no
Did
problem.
you get anything that I said? Can you hear me now?
Carly, you're gonna have to
I'm gonna have to what?
You're gonna have to email me because I missed the whole first part of what you were saying.
Okay, I will do that. I think this happened last time. I better get Steve on it.
Okay. Are you done then, or?
Yeah, I'll just email you then.
Okay, well, you can still talk if you want.
Well, if nobody can hear me, it doesn't make sense.
Carly.
I can hear you now.
We'll move on to Kevin Smith.
Carly.
Carly,
What?
right here.
Yeah.
Do
Do you want to talk about? Yeah, you give the update.
Can you give a quick update?
Oh, well, I was going to, but can anybody hear me?
We hear you good now, but it sounds like you're eating the mic.
Oh, that's weird. Okay.
There's
Okay, well,
a fine line.
there is. Okay, well, I'll move on. And then last year, the Wainwright region, which included the villages, the town, MD, parade as well, and the chamber, went through a strategic planning for tourism marketing of our region. And we got the report back, and in it, it talked a lot about that we need more asset collection, so more videos, photos, articles, that sort of thing, to help promote our region. So now that the Travel Alberta grants are available, we're moving forward and applying for grant funding to continue that project. So hopefully we'll get that, and then we'll be able to continue to get those assets for our region and make it a kind of a tourist destination. Do you have anything to add to that, Wes? Did I miss anything?
Nope. No, I think it's just kind of one of those continually evolving conversations that we have with our regional partners. I personally have been really, really impressed with Strong Coffee Marketing, and I think Kathy, you can probably echo that. We're looking to get some more tangible products on the ground here moving forward. And I think it's really positive that the Wainwright region is going to be primed and ready to go right away and right in line with this relaunch. And it looks like we're really aggressive, really promising, really proactive community or region. Yeah, no, I think that's about it, Carly. Again, I thank you for the work you're doing on that.
For sure. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so Kevin Smook with Beaver County.
Well, hi. For us, COVID-19 canceled many events in our area, including the Snow Goose Festival relaunch. If you look in the minutes from last year, I was bragging about how that was going to come back in 2020, and turns out not so fast. I guess it'll be 2021. Same thing with the Bruce Stampede. First time in 107 years that it won't run. So camping was delayed. We have a couple of campgrounds in our county. It was delayed, but they're now open and underway at Camp Lake in the east and Black Nugget Lakes southwest of Riley. Coal Creek Golf Course is busy, I believe, as are the other courses in our area. Some exciting news, I think. Wild Rose Co-op will expand not into Beaver County, but on our west edge, just as they're going to open I think they're going to open a card lock in Tofield. So they're certainly a prominent player in our region, and they're going to come up into our area as well. So that's excellent. We're grateful for our farmers, producers, greenhouses, small businesses, and hope that people will continue to support them. And a few weeks ago, County Council wrote a letter to the Minister of Advanced Education, University of Alberta Board Chair, the Augustana Dean, the Premier, and our MLA, Jackie Lovely, to express our support for the U of A Augustana campus and to highlight the value that center plays in our region. It's vital, and we want to get that point across. So those are some of the things we've been up to.
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin.
Okay, so Brian, do you want to go for Riley?
Yes, I will. Okay, there's a couple things that we've got on the go. Solar panel project just started about 2 weeks ago. We put the shovels in the ground at that point in time. So we're hoping to sell power to the grid probably by September, if all goes well. We're also doing an upgrade on one of our sewer lines. We're redoing the road and the water line all at the same time. It's about a $1.4 million project for 3 blocks. And we had something very unusual. I'm told it was a first on the weekend. Last weekend, it was a virtual sports day. And it was very well attended, or a great deal of participants. We had people paint flowers on wooden flowers, and we had people paint squares that are going to be put on the concession booth. We had kids go out and paint the sidewalks with chalk, and we provided all the material. The fire hydrants to be painted were painted, and we had a drone that flew across the whole area, and so we could judge the sidewalks, which was very interesting. It was a lot of fun. And what else was there? So there were best prizes for the best flower, and people, our judge drove around checking out all the flowers that were in your front yard. So it was pretty good. So, and like I said, it was well attended, a lot of participants, and a really good time. Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay.
So
next, Anja, are you with Cameras County? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. We've been pretty busy this year. We started working on economic development, which really hadn't been an issue or something that our council had been taking very seriously before. On Tuesday, we actually started an economic development committee. Officially, council approved that. So we'll just be looking for some at-large members coming up in the next couple of months. During COVID, we did a lot of work with our food artisans group and managed to get them online and organized for curbside pickup at the CRE on Thursday afternoons. And it's been so popular, they're continuing it, even though some of them are now back to farmers markets regularly. We also did some major updates to our website and have been using Twitter and Facebook a little bit to promote our businesses. Like everybody else, our campgrounds and golf courses are back open and running pretty much at the capacity that they can handle at this point. Even Tilikum Beach apparently was overpacked on the weekend and we had to tell some people to go home. And I guess the other big thing is that we managed to bring water to Ervik Junction, which is the junction of 13 and 21, to try and promote some more industrial development at that location. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm a slow writer. Okay, Jordan, Flagstaff.
Jordan had texted me she had to leave.
Okay, I'll email her and see what she can give me.
Okay.
Paintearth County, Carol.
So like Quentin mentioned, PEP's continuing to work closely with BREOC. PEP's now has a business beautification enhancement grant open. And we're investigating the potential of bringing fiber to our internet towers, I guess are the biggest things we have going on right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, what was that? Fiber optic?
Yeah.
Okay. Stan, did you have anything to add? Or did he leave? Okay,
Yeah.
then.
Stan is still there.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, Donna, go ahead.
Hi. So I hope most of you get the newsletter, or I'm not going to call it newsletter, regional roundup. When there's enough events, I put them together and get them out. So I don't want to go through the laundry list. Bated breath is the one thing that I keep encouraging for the business grant. I am told it's any day now, the $5,000 announcement for all your businesses that we're hoping to access that $200 million pot. It was announced prior to programs delivery getting it done. And stay tuned. I'm hoping I can get that out next week. Fingers crossed. Information and a link to that. And that's going to be, as you may have heard from our minister, about 2 weeks ago now, if not 2.5. That's going to be fairly wide open, and it's part of the relaunch for small business to help pay for everything from like maybe PPE protocols to there might have been some, back wages or those utility bills that got deferred coming up. So they're going to be fairly flexible from what they said, and we sure hope so. Travel, I heard someone already talk about the Travel Alberta Industry Grant, the cooperative. I think maybe you, Carly. That $5,000 is out till June 30th only. Make sure you get every tourism operator you can to apply for it. The next intake is September on that. We're now Alberta Economic Development, Trade and Tourism is why I'm talking about some tourism stuff too. So a little bit of a stronger line to that for you. Of course, you have Jean to talk about all the labor things that are available from our labor immigration side. I was so pleased to hear from Dr. Epp, and I want to just point out, because it came up with another conversation that Patricia noted on a rally this weekend or tomorrow. One thing that I just want to point out is that really good work was done in the region on welcoming communities. And I noted the digital divide discussed. I noted talk about how do we attract people out here. And I think to really strategically look at how you can target some of that population for the high-tech ag sector. We had a little gift the other day from South of us, who the announcement of a bunch of H-1B, I believe, visas, which is basically your high-tech personal visas. So we have a really unique window opportunity to try and attract some of that high tech to the ag sector that is going to need that. And again, it ties into that whole welcoming communities piece that I know Braid is more than capable of doing, Braid region. There's an awful lot of really good programs that are out there. And I'm here. I know Aja, I welcomed the other day. I met her through something that was being done through Louise with the Community Futures. So I'm always available to do some one-on-one, as you know. And yeah, there's stay safe. Everything that you need to do and your businesses need to do is put out there by our Chief Medical Officer of Health, who she's doing a really good job of making sure that we're aware, because we don't want to do a flip back. We want to continue moving forward so our businesses can go forward strong. Thank you for having me part of this always.
Thank you very much, Donna.
I'm going to jump in here, Brian.
Okay, go ahead.
Donna,
Hi, Wes.
I'm going to pin you against the wall, and I do apologize.
Okay, 1 sec. I'm just going to shut off my little alarm. FYI, that's my 7 o'clock healthcare ring the bell alarm. Sorry.
Great. So we've been hearing for weeks, months about stimulus funding.
Okay.
And we're now, next week is July.
Yes.
Paving season is 3/4 way done.
Pardon me?
Paving season is halfway or 3/4 way done.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, or will you provide any update on what that stimulus funding looks like?
We don't. We don't have an update. We have a weekly, what do we need to escalate from all the meetings that we attend? So I will definitely put up that we're still waiting on that from the communities. As you know, there's been a couple of extensions due to COVID, things like the working group, with some of the things that were announced with budget. Some of those agencies haven't been formed, and some of those grants have been delayed. Yeah, I can't say, Wes, that I have any pull on that, but I definitely will escalate it. That it's a big concern, because yes, we all know that we're a long ways into the season where we need to make this stuff happen.
No, I appreciate it, Donna. I know a lot of you guys been caught behind the ball. We're all trying to make it work together, so I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. That's not pinning me on the wall at all. I will definitely escalate that for you.
Thank you, Donna.
Yeah.
Hey.
Now we'll move to Jean.
Hi, everybody. I can make this quick. With Alberta, I'm with Alberta Labor and Immigration, and as a workforce consultant, I work with employers to help with attracting their workers that they need or retaining them. And so, I mean, right now we're in the highest unemployment rate that we've seen in Alberta for, oh man, many, many decades, really. And so as businesses relaunch, we just hope that they will be able to rehire back staff, and that people will be able to get back to their lives. One thing I wanted to mention that you could pass on to your business owners is that the Canada-Alberta Job Grant can kick in for anybody who's laid off for over 30 days. And that grant can pay up to $15,000 worth of training. So employers can get it fully refunded. Employers apply for it, but it can be 100% refunded if they're hiring somebody that has been laid off for the last 30 days. And of course, they can also train their existing staff as well on a 2/3 basis. But just to promote that, because there might be some people who need training, and especially I think of as retail and as stores go online, and some of the employers are not used to they don't know how to market online, or they don't know how to post things on. They may need to train staff, and so this Canada Alberta Job Grant can be accessible for them to get their staff trained. So just as a heads up about that. And the other thing I wanted to mention is about Alberta Agriculture Job Connector. It's a new site where it's a matching of workers with employers to fill agriculture and agri-food jobs. So I can send that link to Kathy so that it's in the minutes, and then you can check it out. It's just it's brand new, very, very effective for employers and workers.
Okay, thank you very much, Jean.
That's all I have, unless Bobby, do you have anything to say, or?
Very briefly, Kathy and I just agreed that we'll follow up on those last comments with a wee bit of content and directional wayfinding help for all of our members, and possibly even send that out as an extra email in notice.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, before we run away, did you want to announce a decision from executive today with regards to those community, lifestyle fact sheets?
Oh, yeah, we could, today we agreed upon, further to what Kathy's saying there, is fact sheets for lifestyle. All the communities, we're trying to get them upgraded or updated. And I think you're going to get a call from somebody or will you, Kathy, or is they just got
Probably me.
Okay.
So, yeah, so when we transitioned from the old website to the new, we weren't able to fund the community lifestyle fact sheets. So we've been able to bring back the contractor on a much reduced rate, and we will be repopulating all of those and updating them with new data and the new look, so it's consistent with the website. So over the summer, we should finish up in September. You'll be hearing from us to get you into the circle on that and get you looking at your updated data and get your approval. So that was it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Kathy. Okay, somebody that was on here, Stacy Hogan, I don't know if you're still on here or not, but she's a student that is being taught by Dr. Roger Epp. Is that correct, Kathy?
This is correct. She is a PhD student and working with Dr. Epp, and her area of specialty is rural communities. And she asked if she could sit in on the meeting tonight, and of course we said yes, because we're nice people. Yes, absolutely. And she has left by the looks of it, but I want to thank her for attending. Okay, with that, I guess that it concludes the meeting for the night. And unless there's somebody else that has any comments or questions that they would like to have asked or answered. If not, then I will adjourn the meeting at 8:07. And I thank everyone for participating.
Be well, everybody. Thank you. It was a great meeting.
Thank you very much, Donna. Always appreciate having you on.
Hey, Kathy.
Okay.
So that went pretty smooth.